Tonight, it's Live with Vince Eliot. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready. Tonight on Live with Vince Eliot from Black Leaders Detroit, it's Dwan Dandridge. And from Faith Xperience Church, it's Pastor Andre Butler. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Live with Vince Eliot. I, of course, am Vince Eliot, the Vince Eliot, and this is another edition of our talk show, of my talk show, and tonight is a power-packed hour of information you can use. You know, this show is all about information, education, inspiration, motivation, and periodically we have some laughs. Tonight is very special in that, as many people have been doing, we're talking about the current state of affairs in the United States and how it's impacting not only the United States, but the world. And so my guest will be talking about their organizations, how their organizations are impacted, and how they are impacting the community with their organizations. So I want to, first of all, make sure you guys chime in, check in the comments. Make sure you guys are letting me know that you're here. We want to hear from you. We want your opinions. We want your feedback. We want your questions. Engage with us. This is a two-way street here. So you guys let me know that you're here, where you're watching from, what city you're from, and if you're watching on the replay, be sure to let us know that. Hit replay in the comments, and we will definitely appreciate you. And I'm just got so many things in my mind. I'm excited. I want to get to something that I got here, and I keep looking over at my notes because I don't want to miss out on any of the things I need to say. So, for example, I have a disclaimer about this whole, rioting thing, protest thing. I just want to let you know that we do not, and I do not support rioting. I get it. I understand why it's happening. I'm not diminishing, the anger or anything like that. But I say that because I'm going to show you something here shortly. And I want you guys to really listen to what this woman is saying in this video. There's a lot of videos out there that are, people are expressing themselves and things of that nature. But I thought this had a really great twist on it. And so I want you guys to listen to that. But like I said, I just want to give the disclaimer that not only do I not support or advocate rioting, but what I do support is the fact that we are no longer asking for equality. We're demanding it. I think voting is good. I think protesting is good. But I think we need to do more than that. And I am supporting any swift economic action that disrupts the system, because the system is broken. With that being said, I want you guys to pay real close attention to this, because I think this is just very, I can't say any better than she says it.
And then people want to talk about, well, there's plenty of people who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and got it on their own. Why can't they do that? Let me explain to you something about economics in America. And I'm so glad that as a child, I got an opportunity to spend time at Push where they taught me this, is that we must never forget that economics was the reason that black people were brought to this country. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Do you understand that? That's what we came to do. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. Now, if I right now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money, I didn't allow you to have anything on the board, I didn't allow for you to have anything. And then we played another 50 rounds of Monopoly, and everything that you gained and you earned while you were playing that round of Monopoly was taken from you. That was Tulsa, that was Rosewood. Those are places where we built black economic wealth, where we were self-sufficient, where we owned our stores, where we owned our property, and they burned them to the ground. So that's 450 years. So for 400 rounds of Monopoly, you don't get to play at all. Not only do you not get to play, you have to play on the behalf of the person that you're playing against. You have to play and make money and earn wealth for them, and then you have to turn it over to them. So then for 50 years, you finally get a little bit and you're allowed to play. And every time that they don't like the way that you're playing, or that you're catching up, or that you're doing something to be self-sufficient, they burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your Monopoly money. And then finally at the release and the onset of that, they allow you to play and they say, okay, now you catch up. Now at this point, the only way you're going to catch up in the game is if the person shares the wealth, correct? But what if every time you share the wealth, then there's psychological warfare against you to say, oh, you're an equal opportunity hire. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa and like they did in Rosewood, how can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. So when they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. Trevor Noah said it so beautifully last night. There's a social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken.
Wow, she said a lot. Again, we're not advocating rioting, but I do understand it. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to get my first guest on here, and let's kind of unpack some of this. Even some of the comments that she made. So that being said, my first guest is currently responsible for overseeing one of the largest volunteer efforts in the region as Vice President of Projects and Community Engagement at Life Remodeled. His leadership skills have been shaped by a wide range of experiences, including grassroots activism. He has co-led to 2 organizations geared towards addressing racism, Facing Race and Race Matters. He's the founder and CEO of Black Leaders Detroit. Please welcome Dwan Dandridge. There he is. How are you, sir?
I am well. Thanks for having me on.
Well, welcome to the show. So listen, I want to first address, what some of the things that she said. I guess first we should probably talk about, a little bit about, what your organization does and kind of how you've been involved in the community. And then we can go back and talk about her comments. So first of all, Black Leaders Detroit. What is Black Leaders Detroit? So
thanks for asking. So Black Leaders Detroit is basically a funding vehicle that is really grassroots. It turns the everyday person into the hero. So we're a funding vehicle for Black-led organizations in the city of Detroit, and the way that we're structured is through social media and other media platforms. We invite people to commit to donating $1 a week. So, and our goal is to get to 1 million people that have committed to donating $1 a week. So in essence, we want to raise $1 million a week to fund Black-led organizations in Detroit. And what that will look like is for-profit organizations under normal circumstances, not a pandemic, would be able to apply for a no-interest loan. But nonprofits would be able to apply for grants. Under these circumstances with the pandemic, we've actually been awarding some small grants to for-profit businesses just because of the devastation that the pandemic has caused on their businesses.
Okay, so that's the primary focus, is to fund Black-owned businesses financially with no interest loans. That's awesome. All right, so now how long has Black Leaders Detroit been around?
We launched October 26th of last year.
Oh, okay. Wow. So it's brand new. So how did it come about? You're the founder, right? So tell me about that.
So, I think that, basically, I've, ran an off the books or off the record radar, small, business myself. And then I also, it was more like a nonprofit, and also ran a small construction company for many years. And both of them had social impact missions attached to them. The construction company was a way for me to provide for my family, but also provide job opportunities for folks that may have needed a second chance, right? May have made a mistake and are less marketable under normal circumstances. The other thing that I did was I ran a transition house that, was ministry focused for young men in the Brightmoor community that wanted to stop selling drugs and develop a relationship with the Lord. On those journeys, one of the things that I discovered, and over my 20 years of just serving in Detroit, I realized that oftentimes Black leaders will identify a problem in our community, and we dive in head first, looking to solve that problem. And we'll take our own ability, experience, and our own bank account, right, to try to solve that problem. And that lasts oftentimes as long as it takes for me to burn out or burn through my money. Right. And what I've noticed is that like some white-led organizations, they will actually take and create a business structure once they identify a problem, right? Create the business structure, identify a funding source, tap into the funding source, then go in to solve the problem. That's a lot more sustainable and actually scalable, right? Once you're able to identify and say and track the impact that you're having. So I wanted to figure out how can I create a funding vehicle so some of our Black-led organizations will not be trying to fund these amazing initiatives out of pocket. And just some of my experiences in life, I think those conversations that I would often have in the barbershop or just, around the kitchen, the dinner table, when we would always talk about all the things that plague our community, and somebody would inevitably say, if we could just stick together, we would be okay, right? And I think that that's what this is. I don't think that I'm the brain behind this. I think that it's something that we've all said, but I think that we've been able to create a platform we can actually do that.
Okay, so what's the response been to the organization so far?
It's been amazing. It's anybody that I can get in front of. I think for the most part, it's caught the vision. I've talked to hundreds of people. I think that I've had two people. I remember the two people the most that didn't seem to catch the vision and seemed to have some doubt. And I'm looking forward to meeting with them later on this year to show them what we've been doing in such a little time. But the response has been amazing. We've been able to get some grants, like I said, to some small Black-owned businesses during this pandemic. And though the grants have been small, the thought that their community members have put into this pot and it blessed them with the grant, it did something more than the money can do for them. It made them feel visible. It made them feel appreciated. Oftentimes when you're an entrepreneur, you want to see yourself supported the way we support other, people from other backgrounds in our own community. So to see that people put some money together to support them, it gave them hope. And in a time when they desperately needed that just as much as the money.
You said October
2019, so just
19?
last year when we launched. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not a year old.
Right. So how did the there's some obvious answers, but how would you say that COVID-19 and this whole situation has impacted the organization in its infancy stages?
So it's actually helped us, believe it or not, right? So what it's done for us, right? It's actually what you see happening in the nonprofit world, because we are a 501c3. Mm-hmm. What you've seen in the nonprofit world is that the philanthropic dollars started to shift, and they wanted to focus on things that were COVID-19 related specifically. So that caused a lot of nonprofits to say, wait a minute, I may lose some funding, right? Like if I'm not relevant, if I'm focused on something else and we're in a state of emergency, I may lose some funding dollars. Well, one, we don't depend on really big funding dollars. So that losing philanthropic dollars for us is not a major threat. The other thing is we actually are set up and designed for days like this and for times like this. So when we have gotten in front of some of the philanthropic community, they're like, wow, like this is a great place. And we do a really good job of capturing our stories and showing you the impact that we're having on some of the communities. And you can find that, by looking us up at BL Detroit on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Well, what I like about kind of the structure of your organization, and like you've already articulated, it's not dependent so heavily on corporate dollars, or any funding like that. It's actually the community, can pour in, and the community directly benefits. And so that's really kind of the mindset that people are really looking towards, and particularly with the current state of affairs. They're like, well, listen, economically, we need to make some changes, and we need to pull together and build, our own, support our own. And this is, they're talking about supporting businesses, and this is a way that they can do that. So for people to give that $1 a week towards the organization, or I'm sure they can give a one, lump sum, however they want to give. But when you break it down to $1 a week, I mean, it's kind of hard to say how, you can't afford to do that. I mean, obviously some people might not be able to, but it makes it very easy to support, something like that. And then to know that, hey, we're going to be giving loans to people without any finance charges. I mean, that's incredible. And so what do businesses have to do, Black-owned businesses have to do to qualify for these loans?
So right now, so initially we weren't scheduled to dole out any funds, be it grant or loans, until the anniversary of our launch. That was the original plan. So we were in fundraising mode up until then. Again, once we saw what the devastation that the pandemic was causing in the business community, the team got together and we said, we have to do something right now. So we started something that we call the Restore the Village Fund initiative. So once we started that, we were like, you know what, we want to get this money to these businesses as soon as possible. Many of them were struggling. They some people were giving them some relief on their space and allowing them to be flexible and miss payments on utilities and whatnot. But the business insurance and like stipends before like the unemployment started rolling in for their employees was huge. So we wanted to provide a way where they can apply really quickly and not put extra hurdles on them. And what we did was we put an application together. You can go in through our website, click on the COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, and it'll take you right to the application. Right now, we turned the application off to for-profit businesses because we were able to get half of our applicants grants. And now we're going back and this upcoming week, we're going to be awarding grants to 5 more of the applicants that we hadn't gotten to yet. Now, what we are doing is we're open to nonprofit organizations applying for the same grant. And they can go to our website, blackleadersdetroit.org, click COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund, and apply right there on the spot. The application is simple. It'll take you 15 minutes to apply. And what I do is, like, my team gets together. We go through the organizations, and we're selecting 2 organizations each week for the next 5 weeks. So I make the call. I call everybody that applied. So even the people that we aren't able to award that week, they get a call from me, and I let them know that we would love to get to them, but unfortunately, because we don't have the funds to catch everybody, we put them back in the queue, and we'll make a decision the following week on another 2.
Well, I want to, that's awesome, man. I want to encourage people. Listen, I don't even have to sell you on the fact that we need to unite and we need to support each other's organizations and businesses. But I mean, we can, I understand all the outrage. I'm outraged about everything that's going on, but we need to do something. We need to do something that's legal, that's God approved, for a lack of a better term, and something that's going to make a difference for ourselves and quit waiting for somebody else to do the right thing. And so I applaud you for coming up with this, founding this organization, and for all that it's doing for the community. This is, there are a lot of great nonprofits out there, that are doing great things. But I love this because you are directly impacting African Americans' ability to be able to have successful businesses and get them on the right track. All right, so I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about briefly, what we heard in the video earlier. As you saw it, and anybody who's just joining late, let me just recap real quick and say that right now my guest is Dwan Dandridge. He is the founder and CEO of Black Leaders Detroit, and as you may have just heard him articulate, their primary focus is funding African-American businesses 0% financing so that they can help them to be successful. Now, we just watched a video that talked where there was a young lady, it was shot on somebody's cell phone, and she was basically saying, listen, you talk about, people talk about, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And I edited the video down a little bit. There was some things she said that I didn't feel that, that I necessarily agreed with, but this particular portion I thought was really good for discussion. And what she basically communicated was there are those who say you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Arguably you can say that, no question that blacks in America have more opportunity now than, we did obviously during slavery or shortly after slavery. But that's not good enough, right? So she was making a point, hey, if you were playing Monopoly for 400 years and every time you made some money, first of all, you can't go around and you can't buy Park Place and you can't buy, any of the properties, right? And any money you make, if you land on, some people, how they play, you land on Park Place, free parking, you get the money, any money you make somehow, if you pass go, you give us everything you got. For 400 years, you don't make any money in Monopoly. And then she said 50 years after that, even when, you're able to do some things, then they come and burn it down because they don't like the fact you're making progress and things of that nature. And you wonder why, was her point, you wonder why they burn it down. She said, because we don't own none of it. And again, I'm not advocating burning anything down. I don't support that. But she raised some good points. And you saw the video. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
So just my thoughts on her overall message would be, the frustration is real. And I think that, when it comes to burning things down, I think that we have a big response from the business community. I saw like CEOs from some major corporations coming out and, denouncing, what happened in Minnesota. And, they were, saying that they stand with us and whatnot. And like even Black Leaders Detroit is going to benefit, right? I got a call from a couple different people saying, hey, we're trying to find some Black-led, or my company's trying to find some Black-led organizations to donate to. And though I'm going to be extremely grateful to those organizations that donate, Black Leaders Detroit is getting ready to benefit directly from what those protesters are doing, right? Because that is unfortunately what people respond to. I'm privileged and honored to be able to work in a bunch of different spaces. I'm in the room with like decision makers, and sometimes I talk to some of the leaders of some of the more wealthy white-led organizations in Detroit, and I like to just be honest and frank, right? And we've heard people crying out, that we need the same type of attention and development in the neighborhoods that we've seen downtown and midtown. And we've heard those cries over and over. And it still seems like, we don't have as fast a response for the people in the community. And the people in the community have been the people in Detroit that have been here, stayed here, and kept the lights on. Because they're the reason that there's still a Detroit here. So to make their request optional, right, is the frustration that the sister in the video was crying out. She's saying, look, no matter what we say or we do, you don't hear us. And what I like to do is talk about power, For real. So there, and I often say, I've sat in the room, and I won't name any of the business leaders or their companies, but I'll say, look, we may not have the money to buy these big buildings downtown and renovate all of them, right? But like people do, we do have enough money to buy some gasoline and burn these buildings down, right? And what I tell them is, neither one is beautiful to me. A fully developed city that's, thriving, but Black people can't participate, and you have this kind of force field up that I can only look at it and see how pretty it is from the outside. Mm-hmm. That's not beautiful to me. It might be to those that can participate. And don't get me wrong, my family's in a decent enough position where I can go and dine and hang out wherever I want to. But I'm talking about like the masses. And the other thing is like a desolate, like rundown city with, dilapidated buildings that people would often come in and take pictures of and post. And everybody like has that image of Detroit. Neither are beautiful to me, right? Mm-hmm. But one of them is more inviting to me, and one of them is worth more to me. That one that I can roam about to and fro as I please, that one is more valuable to the average Black person in Detroit. So we have to have real honest discussions and address those things way before we get to this point. We had a prophetic voice in Colin Kaepernick kneeling, saying, let's address this issue. And we did the same thing to him that we always do to prophets. We crucified him and dismissed him.
What are two things people can do as it relates to, or one thing people can do as it relates to supporting Black Leaders Detroit?
What you can do is, there are two things. First, you can go to blackleadersdetroit.org, click that donate button, and sign up to become a member. For $1 a week, $4.33 a month, $52 a year, you can be one of the heroes that these business owners need, one of these nonprofit organizations need, just by becoming a member. Other thing is, tell somebody else, right? Like, they're going to see our material, but if they get a call from you saying this organization is amazing, sign up right now. And you wait until they sign up. It only takes 5 minutes. That will go a long way in helping us, meet our goal.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, sir. You going to stick around for us?
I'll hang out.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Dwan Dandridge, he will be around for a little while. He's backstage, and definitely listen. We want your comments. We want your questions so that we can respond to them. This is an open forum discussion, so you guys make sure that you put something in the chat, and then we'll respond to them best we can. I have his information there on the screen, blackleadersdetroit.org, and also his email is dwan@blackleadersdetroit.org. I'm going to come up next with my next guest, and if you've seen the promos, you know who it is, and I'm excited about this particular guest because I have a personal relationship with this man, and he is very instrumental in my life. But before we do that, check this out. Hey everybody, Vince Eliot saying thank you for tuning in. Real quick, I wanted to invite you to become partners with us and contribute to our success. Our success is your success. One way that you can do that is by subscribing to our YouTube page, The Vince Eliot. Click on the notification so that you are notified when we go live or upload new content. Secondly, please share this broadcast with your family, friends, contacts, Craig and them, Cud and them, share with everybody. Lastly, you can contribute to the success of the broadcast with a financial contribution of only $1.25 a week, $5 a month, or $60 contribution for the year by using the Cash App information that's on the screen, $Live with Vince Eliot. So thank you for helping us to bring information, education, inspiration, motivation, and yes, a few laughs to the world. Oh. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest has a passion for equipping others to experience the future God has for them. He's on a mission to share God's desire to prosper his people in every area of their lives. He is a sought-after conference speaker and host, known for his practical and relatable approach to preaching God's word, and is the pastor of Faith Xperience Church in the heart of downtown Detroit. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pastor Andre Butler. Let me get you on there. I got the wrong people on. Look at this. Let me get it right. All right, there we go.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir? Thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. So we've got quite a bit to talk about. As you may have heard already, you know, we're talking about the current state of affairs. Everybody's talking about it on social media and every media outlet that you can hear or see. And I just want to allow you, first of all, to, kind of talk about, Faith Xperience Church and, how it came about and kind of where it is right now.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to give you some props for that shirt because, that's
there you go.
An epic thing, but we've, been privileged to launch a church in downtown Detroit about 2 years ago. I guess a little less than 2 years ago, called Faith Xperience Church. We call it FX Church. And our purpose really is to help people who are far from God experience the future God has for them. We are a church that's all about preaching God's word to people. It's all about allowing God to use us to make a mark in our community. It's all about experiencing the supernatural and helping others do the same. And we've had the privilege of doing those things. Just another year and a half or so, or almost 2 years that we've been in operation. We've definitely seen a lot of people come to God. We've definitely done a number of things in our community. We'd like to do a lot more. In fact, we've got a great event coming up next month. We call it Serve Day, where we go out and serve as a church family and just go to 8 to 10 different facilities at the same time and just find a way to be a blessing. And we've definitely experienced the supernatural individually and collectively as a church. In fact, God's doing some pretty great things for our church family even right now, just this week. So those are things that are big in my heart, and that's what the church is all about.
So you could have had a church in, Belleville, Livonia, Southfield, West Bloomfield, anywhere in Michigan. Why downtown Detroit?
It's where God told me to go. And so I believe in obeying God, but also there's a need there. One of the things that's been big in my heart is the need to reach the younger generations with the gospel, to deliver the gospel in a way in which they'll actually listen to it, a way in which they can actually, hear it and receive it, and in a way where they'll get engaged and they'll do their part to make a mark in this world. And that's part of what I feel like I'm called to do. And downtown is definitely an area where you can do that. Now, there are others as well, but I know for me, that's where God told me to go. And we're seeing, the beginnings of being able to reach younger generations, because traditionally, when it comes to African-American churches, you don't see young people in those churches. They might stay there until they until they graduate high school because they're forced to, and then you don't see them anymore until, maybe they're 40, and now life has beat them up pretty bad. And they've, instead of using those years to make a mark and to get closer to God and enjoy the life God wants them to have, because they've gotten off track, their life is nothing like it should be. And the pastor ends up spending a lot of his time repairing damage that really could have been prevented. So I feel like it's needed to reach that younger generation. And I also think that we have the first unchurched African-American generation in the history of our people.
Wow.
It's the first time we have a full generation that doesn't go to church, that doesn't really care what God's word says about things. Even with the Black Lives Matter movement, one thing you may notice is that you don't see much of the clergy leading that. And some of them, and I can't say that that's just because, the church doesn't care about justice. I just got off of a chat, or whatever you want to call it, a show with a bunch of pastors that all they care about is justice. They've been preaching it, you can tell, for decades. The Black church has been about justice for 50 years. Part of it is that we've lost our voice because we lost that generation. So that's part of what's in my heart, is to reach those that, are far from God, that have grown up in a different time, to do it in a way that they can actually hear us and step into the future God has for them.
Now, obviously, this is, uncharted territory, when we're dealing with the pandemic. Let's talk about the pandemic now, now that we got a greater issue. But as far as the pandemic, you just started your church in September 9th, 2018, and, really got a lot of momentum going, and then boom, the pandemic hit. Aside from the obvious, not being able to hold services, how has that really impacted your church?
We are still going strong. There's obviously a fear when things like this happen that your church is going to get hit. It's going to get hit. Your people are going to get hurt. And you start wondering what the future looks like. What's happened for us is that when I've talked to our members by phone, I was amazed when I called, and talked to member after member after member after member. And I'm calling to see how you're doing and how can we pray with you. And they're all like, man, I'm great, Pastor. God's been taking care of me. And it's like member after, I'm like, man, God, you really took care of the church, So individually, God's been blessing people. A lot of people have had great opportunities present themselves. And what we found as a church family is the same thing, where we're reaching people that we weren't reaching before, even though we're very evangelistic in our approach, right? We're trying to reach people, but we're still reaching people we weren't reaching before. People are still being ministered to. There are definitely some areas that I like to see us improve in. And this time has shown me some adjustments we need to make being a young church so that we're actually fully fulfilling our mission. There are definitely some things that I've been a little frustrated about, but then God's opened some great doors as well. And there's some things I haven't shared yet that has happened even this week that I think our church is going to be very excited about. So, the enemy meant evil, but God's turning it to our good.
Well, so there's, they're opening back up, restaurants and, businesses and churches. And so what is your plan for opening back up the church?
Well, we are really at a point of decision. We don't meet in our own building. We were meeting at a Detroit Music Hall. And so first of all, we were kind of at the mercy of whenever they would open. And we've just heard from them in the last week what they're thinking. And then I'm really praying about it. I mean, this is unprecedented. No one, it hasn't happened in 100 years. And every ministry is having to deal with it their way. And for me, I don't like just to make decisions based on what I think. I like to hear from God. And so we're at a point where we're doing fine meeting online. And we're planning for a couple of different eventualities. I would imagine one way or the other, we're going to be meeting in September. The question is, are we going to be doing something before that? And we might not. I would expect in the next week, we'll make a final decision and we'll see.
So, so people can, watch you online, of course, Faith Xperience on Facebook. And they can also, you've got, oh my goodness, when it comes to social media, you got everything covered. It's like there's not a social media platform where people can't catch not only the Sunday services. Well, first of all, let's back up there. Let's hold up there for a second. You got the regular Sunday service for the adults. Then you got something for the youth, kids. We've got, I'm gonna let you tell it. Talk about the groups and Wednesdays. Go ahead and just share with people everything you got going on online.
Yeah, we really, I think one of the great things about this is that it has opened everyone's eyes to the fact that everybody you're trying to reach is already online. And so as a ministry, we had talked a lot about maximizing social media and, technology, and we had done some things. So we were not in a position where we had to suddenly create something. We were kind of already going that direction. But what we've been able to do is augment it and learn some things and try some things. And some things have worked great and some things have not, But we've done that. So we do have our Sunday experiences. We do have students ministry. We have kids ministry. We do First Wednesdays. We do small groups as well. And of course, we're constantly putting out content, everyday life-giving content to encourage people during this time we need it and to help people to get closer to God and really live that future that God wants them to have, where they know him and they find freedom and they discover their purpose, which is so important right now. And they make a mark in a time when we need to make a mark in some ways more than ever. So that's what we've been doing, and we're excited about it. And we believe that we're only going to get better at it.
Okay. So just if you joined us late, I'm speaking with my guest, Pastor Andre Butler of Faith Xperience Church, the founder and pastor of Faith Xperience Church. And we were just basically talking, in the first part of this interview about, how the pandemic is affecting the church and your church specifically, and opening back up and kind of being led by God. And, the fact that you also are located in the heart of downtown Detroit. Mm-hmm. And so, opening the church, literally right across the street from the Detroit Lions, mm-hmm. Ford Field. So, that's interesting. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about the obvious, things that are going on currently in our society. And of course that, involves the protest, the riots, the police brutality and everything that comes along with that. And so from your perspective as a pastor, as a man of God, a leader in the Christian community, what do you feel the believer's response should be to all of the police brutality and the anger and the civil unrest that's going on?
I think that the best thing to do whenever anything happens is to go to the Bible. And in the Bible, there's a story in Judges chapter 19 and chapter 20 where a man, his wife is taken by a mob in the city. She is raped, she is beaten, she is killed in the street. And so when he leaves that city, he goes to the rest of the nation and he tells them what happened. And the rest of the nation rose up together as one in protest of what they saw happen or what they heard happen in the street. And in their case, they actually went to war to make it right. Now, I'm not saying we're supposed to go to war, but I am saying that our response right now is biblical. To watch a murder in the middle of the street by those who are supposed to be protecting us. And of course, now this isn't the only one. There's been case after case after case after case after case. And to rise up as one in protest of that is entirely appropriate. We have to do it and be angry and sin not. And some have crossed over into the line of sin in terms of rioting, and now you're looting and hurting people and things like that. That's all wrong. But clearly, if you're going to talk about the Bible and frankly, common sense. But I think that it's appropriate for us to be angry about it. I think it's appropriate for us to do what we can about it. And I think that's what so many people are doing.
So what would you support as a practical solution that African Americans can do within the confines of the law? And as I used the statement earlier, that would be God approved or God ordained, if mm-hmm. you will. What are some practical things that you would support African Americans doing? I'm going to say in addition to, if there's anything in addition to voting and protesting.
I think that you work the system. I know there's a lot of talk about how the system is broken, things along those lines. I don't know if I want to get into that as much but I can say this: you still got the best government system in the history of the world, in democracy, so that you have the best chance for a people to influence what's going to happen. And so, I've read some things this week I would like to learn more about in regards to immunity that police officers are given that has been abused. And I know one of our congressmen mentioned yesterday that we need to do something about that. And I was a congressman most people do not like, was Rand Paul. And he said, hey, we need to address this issue of this immunity issue, because one of the reasons why so many police officers are getting off and there's no accountability, which means people have a license to do these type of things, is because of that law. So that's one of those areas where you can lobby, you can pick up the phone and call your representative, you can apply pressure even within the system mm-hmm. To help deal with the actual root of the issue. And some of the issue, with a big part of the issue is racism. Some of the issue is also just there's some cultural things going on in our police departments. And so that's one example. I'm sure there are many others of things we can do politically right now to try to shift things, to change things. What we have right now is an open door, an opportunity right now to bring about change. You've never had this much of the nation outside of the Civil War. You've never had this much of the nation kind of recognize we have a problem and want to move on it. We know there are those that don't, but you've got people now stepping up and understanding what we're saying. They just weren't doing that 6 months ago, that are finally getting behind this movement And so you've got an opportunity, and I think you use it. You apply pressure where necessary, but you also have to do it in such a way where you're not trying to support evil to defeat evil. And that's the struggle that some of us have had with even the justice movement, the justice preaching, is that we're so busy talking about justice, but at the same time, we want to support sin and we want to support murder, and so you can't do that. You got to stay on message. And if justice is biblical, some of this other stuff, you got to push that stuff aside and let's deal with things according to God's word. And that would include voting as well, because we cannot, we got to put people in office that fear God, that believe in doing what's right, as far as God's concerned, as far as people is concerned, as far as African Americans are concerned. You're talking about our people. And that's across the board. So that's got to deal with justice. But once again, it's got to deal with the other areas as well. And if we continue, and frankly, if we stay on the same path that we've been on, we could deal with the racism issue. But if African Americans don't make some adjustments in how we think and what we believe and how we vote, we're going to be sitting here again because we are perpetuating some things that are harming us. So I think that we have to look at all of that.
So there's a lot of people who look at history and they look at a Martin Luther King and say, hey, this was a man of God who actually had some success. He not only did he, go for the voting rights and the protest, but then he also he took it a step further and impacted the economic climate. What do you say to that? Is an economic stand, these blackout days, is that the way to go? Is that something that should be included in your opinion?
I don't know. I'm not an expert on that side of things in regards to the impact that it actually has. I think that people should do what they believe will cause them to be heard right now. And people believe that's the way God's leading them. But by all means, you do what God's told you to do. I definitely, I think it's important to be led by God in it. And
Okay.
I also think that you got to give a little space for, trying things out. I'm a big believer in experimenting and, trying something. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, okay, don't do it no more, And we got to figure out what's going to work in this day and age, because this is a different world than the 60s. And although we are in a tough spot, what we're dealing with is nothing compared to what our ancestors did. Not even close.
Yeah.
And so, we got to realize that, first of all, and we got to deal with it a little differently. See what works today.
Got Pastor Andre of Faith Xperience Church with me. Also had Dwan Dandridge from Black Leaders of Detroit on earlier, who's still backstage with me. If you have any comments or questions for either one of them, go ahead and put those in the comments. Let me know, what you think of what's going on, what we're talking about, and we'll address those comments and questions. And then if you're watching on the replay, just put something in the replay to let us know that you're watching. I just want to take a moment to say that if you're watching on Facebook, please go to our YouTube page, The Vince Eliot. You can search The Vince Eliot. Go to our YouTube page, subscribe so that you're notified every time that there's going to be a new live or we're posting some videos. And so eventually what we want to do is we want to get all of our audience over to the YouTube page and live stream from there. I want to switch gears one more time with you and talk about your thoughts on how the Bible prophecy, when it talks about end times, last days, what do you see today, that lines up? And of course, I would imagine that there's a ton of things that line up, but I guess what I'm asking is, there's a lot of talk about, the chip and the mark and all of that, the signs of things that are already here. What do you see in terms of the timing? And are we, in your opinion, are we a week away from the rapture? Just give me your thoughts on that.
Well, of course, the Bible said in Matthew 24 that there were certain things that would happen before the return of Jesus. And one of them would be race will rise against race. Another one would be pestilences, right? Disease becoming more rampant. Another would be natural disasters becoming more frequent, and wars becoming more frequent. And if you even look back at the last 100 years and compare it to time before that, you could see that what the Bible said is happening. We're seeing more and more and more, and not just more, but more impactful. And the example the Bible used was a woman in labor, right? So when she first starts off, she's having contractions, but they're not as strong. They're not as many. But over time, they're increasing in frequency and increase in impact. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with birth pangs. And so, yeah, we're getting closer and closer to the return of Jesus. The good news is, if you're a believer, if you're somebody just following Jesus, you won't be here when the mark of the beast is implemented. You won't be here during the last 7 years of tribulation. And there's plenty of scripture to support that, from how God dealt with Noah and the ark all the way through to Revelation. But we're definitely there. I don't know that we're at that place where we could say, hey, he's going to come tomorrow. I know some people argue and they say, hey, every prophecy has already come to pass. He can come tomorrow. I don't think that's actually biblically accurate. There's prophecy that's pointing to a third temple in Jerusalem before the return of Jesus. And the Antichrist is going to set up shop right in the middle of that temple, in the middle of the tribulation. Well, there is no temple in Jerusalem right now. There's just a wall, and there's the Temple Mount. So there's a lot that has to happen in the Middle East. Ezekiel talks about Israel being a land of unwalled villages. Clearly, that means there's peace in the Middle East. We are not there right now. So I think that we still got a little ways to go, but God's going to make it happen. And when it does, hope you're ready.
Well, I'm definitely ready. What's funny, and this is the lighter side of the conversation, but I often think about the fact that although I'm 100% ready, and know that I'm going to be raptured up, I think about, I got other things I want to do before. I think a lot of people think about that. There's certain things I want to get done, before the rapture. Of course, the spiritual side of things, oh man, I got family that I need to reach, friends that I need to reach, and they haven't come around all these years. But I'm gonna be honest with you, there's some non-spiritual things that I want to accomplish before I leave here. There's things I want to do for my family. There's things I want to do for my wife. And I know, once I get to heaven, none of that stuff is going to matter. It's not going to be important. There's nothing greater than the experience I'm going to have once I get to heaven.
Right.
But in my humanistic thinking, it's like, man, I got to hurry up and get these things done because I want to get this done before my life is over on earth. I want to take a quick look at the comments and see what we got going on here. So John Kilgo says, he says, I'm doing a good job. That's encouraging. Appreciate it, sir. He loves what we're doing. Renita Kip. You know who that is. She says, yes. I guess that's yes to everything she's hearing. And then Maria Sepulveda, great job making a difference. I think we can apply that to all three of us, Dwan, Dandridge, and what he's doing. Of course, the work that you're doing in the community. And then I'm just here to help spread the word and all the great work that you guys are doing as well. So listen, man, I don't want to hold you long. I know you got you got posts on Instagram, you got them on, you're on Facebook, you're on SoundCloud, you iTunes, YoTunes, everybody's tunes. Yeah, TikTok. I mean, I saw one post you did where you said your daughters were trying to get you on TikTok and
they succeeded.
I don't know that I saw the aftermath on that. Yeah. I'd love to see that. Did you post anything?
Yeah, I did. To my shame, I did.
Well, listen, that's on TikTok, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna have to look that up, man, because did you actually hit a move or two?
Yeah, one time. I messed around with something just so she can make fun of me.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts. And really just giving some insight to the church's position as you see it and your position and standpoint. I really think that it's no doubt that we should be, seeking God no matter what the situation is. It's easy to get angry, and the Bible says you can be angry and sin not, as you stated earlier. The thing is that we want to make sure that we're not getting out of His will, because a lot of things that we see happening are Bible prophecy. And they have to happen for the word to be true. So, although it upsets us, we have to look at the bigger picture. That doesn't mean that we just lay down and take anything. We do, as like you said, as we're led. But I think at the same time, we have to understand the spiritual ramifications for everything that's going on. So once again, I want to thank you. I want to thank Dwan Dandridge. Let me bring him back up. There he is. And appreciate you. You guys, you guys are probably connected if you haven't connected already at some point. And I'll post you guys emails and all of that type of thing as I let you go. And if you guys, anybody that's in the viewing audience, if you want to reach these guys, please reach out, support the organizations. And if you don't have a church home, hey, Faith Xperience Church is a great place to land. Come check them out. But you're going to have to check them out online right now because you can't come to the building. But stay tuned. You can go to myfaithx.com. I'll just throw both of those up there real quick. And that's about it, guys. Appreciate you. And you guys keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right. Well, guys, that's about it. And I want to thank you all for watching and listening and commenting. You guys make sure you go to the YouTube channel, The Vince Eliot, and subscribe. Hit that notifications bell. Let us know, we'll let you know when the next live video is coming up and any other videos that we post. Appreciate you guys clapping in the background. I need to hear some claps. Hold on, let me just hear some. There we go. Yeah, I see your claps in the chat. And then before you go, in case you came late, I want to make sure that you guys get an opportunity to support the work that Live with Vince Eliot is doing. That's very important for us to continue doing the work that we're doing, and we want you to be a part of that. And as you saw in the promo, and I'll just play it one more time for you, it doesn't require a lot of, it's not like we're asking you to give $150 a month or anything like that. So with that being said, before we go, check this out. Hey everybody, Vince Eliot saying thank you for tuning in. Real quick, I wanted to invite you to become partners with us and contribute to our success. Our success is your success. One way that you can do that is by subscribing to our YouTube page, The Vince Eliot. Click on the notification so that you are notified when we go live or upload new content. Secondly, please share this broadcast with your family, friends, contacts, Craig and them, Cud and them, share with everybody. Lastly, you can contribute to the success of the broadcast with a financial contribution of only $1.25 a week, $5 a month, or $60 contribution for the year by using the Cash App information that's on the screen, $ Live with Vince Eliot. So thank you for helping us to bring information, education, inspiration, motivation, and yes, a few laughs to the world. Oh. Thank you. That's it for tonight. Everybody, we will be back here again next Friday at 8 p.m. And we look forward to you. Please share this, tell your friends, your family, and we will look forward to next week's conversation. I will let you know before Friday comes who the guests are going to be once we get everybody confirmed. And so we will continue to give you information, education, inspiration, motivation, and when possible, a few laughs.